welcome back to the Riri Show. Today's guest is somebody so amazing. He is building Moonwell DeFi, which is an open lending and borrowing protocol on Moonriver and Moonbeam. So please welcome the absolutely amazing Luke Youngblood.
Thank you so much, Riri. It's great to be here. It's awesome to be on your show.
Thank you for coming. I'm so excited to get chatting here. You're building quite the protocol, and I'm really excited too because you're building on Moonriver, which is actually one of my first investments in the dot ecosystem. So I'm excited to get chatting here. So Luke, you yourself alone are really quite the impressive human being. Before this protocol ever really even came to be. And you've got some big names under your belt. So you have, like ETH and Coinbase and et cetera here. So could you shed some light for us on your journey into cryptocurrency and really onward into Moonwell?
Yeah, sure. It's been a fun, couple decades for me. I've been working in tech for a couple decades as a software engineer. And I worked at some big tech companies like Amazon Web Services back in the early 2010s. And was really into cloud computing and helped some large customers like Apple migrate, iCloud to Amazon S3 and, worked on a lot of distributed systems problems. But I first learned about crypto and Bitcoin back in the early 2010s as well. And I started mining crypto on my gaming computer. It was just kind of a fun hobby for me because it was like magic internet money, and you could leave your computer running when you're asleep and it would make like 50 cents worth of Bitcoin. And it was so cool. It was like this money printer. And I went down the crypto rabbit hole. In 2016, 2017, I started getting into Ethereum and I started learning a little bit of Solidity and doing some smart contract development. And then in 2018, we had this opportunity, my brother and I, to launch a proof of stake network, the Tezos network. We got approached by one of his friends who was working for the Tezos Foundation, and they asked us to build proof of stake validator infrastructure. And so that was really fun because I got to combine like my cloud computing skills and my crypto background and kind of build infrastructure for proof of stake. And that was when I really made crypto my full-time gig. And that's what brought me to Coinbase in 2019. So Coinbase was interested in getting into staking, and they were looking for experts in the field. So they found me through Tezos and hired me to kind of build out staking rewards at Coinbase. And then over the last 3 years, I've built out staking rewards for Tezos, Cosmos, Polkadot, Kusama, Algorand, others, and Ethereum 2.0 was the most recent one that I just launched. And then fast forward to like 2020 or 2019, later 2019 and 2020, I started getting really into DeFi. And that was sort of another light bulb moment for me, kind of like when I first mined Bitcoin. When Compound launched in June of 2020, the Comp version 2, that was when yield farming kind of became like this big thing. And everyone started talking about farming and harvesting crops. And it kind of blew my mind. And I went down the DeFi rabbit hole during DeFi summer. I was farming protocols like Sushi when they first launched, and Yam, and all the food coins. And but it was just kind of this magical experience where, there were like money printers again. You could earn money by like using DeFi, and decentralized finance was becoming this thing where you didn't have to trust intermediaries and banks. And so that was really kind of exciting for me. And so I started getting really passionate about DeFi. We did a hackathon at Coinbase with Compound Finance back in late 2019, and we built a price oracle that's open source. It would take signed price data from the Coinbase Pro exchange and send it to Ethereum, and we could use it in DeFi. Those price feeds could give us a trusted price for what is Bitcoin trading at, so people can take out loans against it. And so that was my first experience with money markets and lending protocols. And then over the last couple of years, I've just become a big DeFi degen, and that culminated in late last year, just forming a team and launching Moonwell. And so we formed a team just late last year. I left Coinbase back in March and made this my full-time job. And so we've recently launched Apollo, which is Moonwell Apollo, which is the first lending and borrowing protocol on Moonriver. And it's been a really exciting journey. I guess we could talk more about Moonwell Apollo and Moonwell. What questions do you have about that? Happy to share more about my background as well.
Yeah, no, I have a whack of questions for you, but like you are stacked. Your resume is stacked, Luke. Well, we're really excited about what you're doing, but I mean, obviously this isn't this isn't your first rodeo. So it's really nice to have, I mean, such brilliant minds in the space. And I think that's why I really love doing these kind of interview series, is because it's really impressive the type of people I get to meet. So yeah, absolutely incredible. And I mean, being able to name drop things like Apple and you know, Tezos and stuff like that. That's big too. So amazing. Well, yeah, I do want to jump into Moonwell, of course. So what my first question to you is probably one that you've answered a million times, but if you could just give us a little bit of a rundown of what Moonwell is, just as a starting point for us here.
Sure. So Moonwell is an open lending and borrowing DeFi protocol on Moonbeam, or well, Moonriver today, and soon to be Moonbeam.
Yeah.
And so basically, what does that allow you to do? You can take a crypto asset you already have, like Mover, the Moonriver native token, and then you can supply it, and Moonwell will connect you with borrowers. So as a lender, you can lend out your Mover, and you can get paid interest from borrowers that want to borrow your Mover. And Moonwell is decentralized in that it's a decentralized smart contract platform where it connects lenders to borrowers in a trustless way. So we're non-custodial. We don't custody your funds. It's just a trustless way to kind of connect lenders and borrowers. So what does that let you do, though? It really just lets you do more with the crypto you already have. So many of us, invested in Mover, months ago, and we're holding Mover long term because we think it'll be worth more in the future. And so wouldn't it be great to be able to, borrow stablecoins against it and maybe pay bills in the real world without having to sell your Mover? That's one use case. Or another use case is people might want to borrow a different type of crypto against their Mover to invest in something, or you might actually want to buy more Mover and use leverage. So there's a number of different use cases, but ultimately, having access to lending and borrowing just lets you do more with the crypto you already have. And one of the interesting things about lending protocols in general, and this is why I love them so much, is that it gives normal middle-class people access to the same tools that like the ultra wealthy have. So like, how ultra wealthy people never pay taxes because they don't really sell their stocks, right? They just kind of borrow against them and then use that money to like buy houses and yachts and stuff like that. And so giving normal people the tools that only the ultra wealthy have to like just borrow against crypto that you hold and do things with it in the real world is just incredible. And I love kind of bringing that to people and kind of opening people's eyes to like what's possible when you have access to like all the tools of the financial system.
I love that part too, because, I think especially where the world's going right now, we are seeing this divide. So it's nice to see that inclusivity and just giving them an entry point, because I think, and I mean, I'm in there too, but I think like a lot of the problem when you're entering into the crypto space is it can be daunting trying to, find the funds and all that to get involved properly and really take your investments to the next level and putting them to work. But being able to lend and borrow, not just for your own personal life, but, also to then use that money in other ways in the crypto space, even on chain, is huge, right? So I love that you guys are doing that. So in terms of Moonbeam and Moonriver, like why did you choose Moonbeam and Moonriver of all places, or Polkadot Kusama, I guess?
Great question. So back in 2019, I went to the Web3 Summit in Berlin, and it kind of blew me away because this was one of the first experiences I had where people were really talking about not just crypto, like cryptocurrency and like crypto as like an investment opportunity, but it was more of like, how do we use Web3 to kind of remove trust in all the different like government and societal and like corporate structures we have. And it was really fascinating to me because it was like, owning our own content on the internet and like being able to, have digital ownership rights and, being able to like trustlessly interact and transact with other individuals without being able to be censored. And it sort of spoke to me and resonated with me that like we could build this Web3 future where we own our own content and there isn't some large media company or some large like, Web2 company that owns our content. And so that was kind of a really eye-opening experience. And after that, I really wanted to get into Substrate and kind of learn more about parachains and maybe even develop my own parachain. I kind of experimented a little bit with the Substrate and the developer tooling. I never built my own parachain, but that was sort of my first foray into like Polkadot Kusama. And, I started building Polkadot Kusama collators and validators for Coinbase and kind of went down the rabbit hole. But the big draw for Moonbeam and Moonriver in particular is that it gives you access to all of the assets in the Polkadot ecosystem. So Polkadot has this thing called cross-consensus messaging, or xCM. So I can send assets from one parachain like Akala to another parachain like Moonbeam without a bridge, without trusting a bridge. And so that gives me the capability to kind of like access all of the assets in the entire Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem from an EVM compatible environment like Moonbeam. And so Moonbeam has all the tooling we're used to from Ethereum. Like, you can write Solidity, you can use multi-sigs, you can use all the developer tooling that you're used to on Ethereum, but you have access to all the parachain assets that are part of the .sama ecosystem. And so that was really the big draw for us. I mean, there's like 20 billion plus of DOT, 20 billion market cap of DOT, and all of that is accessible to Moonbeam. We can bring that in with cross-consensus messaging with xCM. And all the other great parachains out there, on the Moonriver side, we have really cool things that are being built like Remark and, other awesome parachains that are just going to come and flourish. And we don't know what applications will be built yet, but it's exciting to have access to all those applications from an EVM compatible environment.
Especially too, xCM, the next version I was just talking about with Bill Laboo not long ago. So that's really funny. Also that you mentioned it, but it's nice that you're putting it to such good use here because it makes so much sense. And I think that's something too that's unique to the Polkadot ecosystem. So I think that draws a lot of people in is that ability with the xCM and the messaging between parachains and other assets too. And you have tons of assets. I have so much I want to talk to you about. So, but let's just finish with the intro stuff. I just want to also know where Moonwell came from, like the name.
Oh yeah, great question. So we were thinking about how to name ourselves and what brand we wanted to have in the early days, like back in December when we were still trying to plan our launch. And I thought of the name Moonwell, and the reason why is because I'm a huge gamer, and like I remember in World of Warcraft, there's like Moonwell's like the night elf source of power, and I thought that was really cool. But when I shared the name with my team, I was like, what do you guys think of this name? Nobody really got the gaming reference because they weren't like gamers, or they weren't like World of Warcraft addicts like me back in the day. And so, but they all thought of this as like a wellness theme, like it being like this futuristic solar punk type of wellness theme where it's like everyone has financial wellness, physical and mental wellness. And so we really leaned into that wellness theme. And so that's really what Moonwell, the brand, is all about, is basically encouraging people to be more financially well and then have wellness in all aspects of their life. And a big part of that is just enabling people to do more with what they already have, with the crypto assets they have. And so we really want to lean into that kind of wellness theme. And that's sort of the theme behind Moonwell. And then we've also leaned into like the cryptonauts theme, which is like the astronauts going to outer space and going to the moon. And so we really kind of want to project this image of like a future Star Trek universe where everyone has enough resources and they're all totally set. They can do anything they want with their life, and they just focus on self-fulfillment as opposed to like trying to pay the bills and acquire money and things like that.
Well, it's such a holistic approach. And then the other thing I really liked about your name was Moon, because it fits. Like, you have Moonbeam, Moonriver, and Moonwell. Like it just, the whole family kind of fits together really. So
yeah.
That just, I don't know, apparently it's a coincidence, but it worked really well. So I like that.
Thanks.
So Apollo launched first and launched at the beginning of February. And the growth here has been really absolutely incredible. And especially when we look at really such a short time frame. So, I mean, you already reached 350 TVL. And yeah, so it's been impressive. I think this was one of the most successful launches actually on Moonriver. So can you touch on this?
Sure. Yeah, it's been really exciting to see the community interest and like how passionate the Moonwell community is about Moonwell Apollo. So Moonwell Apollo, we launched on February 10th. That's on Moonriver. And we're going to launch the Moonwell Artemis protocol, or the Moonwell Artemis protocol will be activated on Moonbeam in the coming weeks. So in a few weeks, we'll probably see Moonwell Artemis launched on Moonbeam. But Moonwell Apollo, and the reason for the naming actually is Apollo and Artemis are like twins in Greek mythology. And Apollo was the first moon mission. And then Artemis is the new moon mission, which is going to send a man and a woman to the moon next year, I think. So we thought that was really fitting to have like two different moon missions based on, or to name our product after two different moon missions. And so it's been really exciting to see the adoption of Moonwell Apollo, 350 million TVL in just a few weeks timeframe. And we couldn't be more excited about, the early users. And we were actually, I'm not sure if this is still true, but we were the largest parachain project across all of the parachains a few weeks back. I'm not sure if we still are. And that includes the Polkadot parachains as well, not just xcKSM, which was really kind of mind-blowing to think about. But I think a big part of it is just that it tapped into there was no real solid lending protocol in the .SAMA ecosystem. And so it tapped into a need for that. And then we're really kind of excited to work closely with a lot of DEX partners like Moonbeam and Zenlink and other DEXs that are on Moonriver to kind of help build the liquidity across the broader Moonriver ecosystem. So one of the things we've been doing, I don't know if you've, the way that the community has kind of structured the incentives and the rewards for early adopters of Moonwell is that you get rewarded more when you borrow than when you lend. And so what that does is it kind of helps to bootstrap the ecosystem because it encourages people borrowing and then using those tokens in other protocols. So maybe you want to borrow a stable coin and become a LP on Moonbeam's stable swap DEX, or maybe you want to become an LP in Zenlink on their KSM mover farm. And so we want to enable people to do that. And those broader use cases will help grow the broader .SAMA ecosystem or the broader Moonriver ecosystem, encouraging people to borrow and buy NFTs, encouraging people to just do more with what they already have. And so that's really, it's been exciting to see the growth. And I'm happy to also talk about the plans and where we're going next as well.
Yeah, you know what? I have a whole section for that. I'm really excited to talk about that as well, just because we have seen such big growth initially. So I'm excited to hear what you have planned for the future. But my next question is kind of in regards to the launch of Artemis on Moonbeam, because that's kind of your next, well, maybe not your next venture, but it's coming up. So are you able to tell us a little bit about maybe what assets we'll see here? And if you can't, can you give us some hints or tell us a little bit what's to expect?
Sure. So the Moonwell community, we're still evaluating all the assets on Moonbeam and which ones we want to support on day one. And what it really comes down to is we want to support the best assets that are native to Moonbeam, but also the best parachain assets. And so I think at launch, you'll definitely see Glimmer. I mean, that's just going to be a given. And then we also hope to have xcDot available. It may not be activated yet on the Relay chain, but we're just waiting for that activation event to occur where xcDot can come to Moonbeam. And so we're really hoping that by the time we launch Artemis, that cross-chain DOT will be available and we'll be able to let people lend and borrow DOT. And then, of course, there's a whole bunch of other native assets that are native to Frax is a big one on the stablecoin side. If you know Sam and his team, they've been really strong supporters of Moonbeam and Moonriver. And so we're really excited. We'll probably have Frax support at launch. And then we want to also enable the best bridged assets coming from both Ethereum and from the Cosmos and Terra ecosystems. So we're working with bridge partners to help bring those best bridge assets into the Moonbeam and Moonriver ecosystem, so that people can also borrow against their assets from Ethereum or their UST coming from Terra. And then another thing that we're doing is we have a strong partnership with Akala, and we're working with them to help bring AUSD to Moonwell. So Akala USD is going to be one of the strongest stablecoins in the Polkadot and .SAMA ecosystem. And so we think it's going to be the next DAI basically, but for the Polkadot ecosystem. And so we're pretty excited about adding AUSD support as soon as it's ready. And one thing I should mention is that in order for us to add assets to Moonwell, as a community, we kind of have to think about a few different characteristics. And so maybe it's helpful for your listeners to kind of know what it takes to add an asset.
Yeah.
So first,
definitely.
Yeah. So first of all, we use Chainlink price oracles for Moonwell, and the reason why is because Chainlink is trusted, and it's the premier price oracle. They have really good data filtering to kind of they bring prices from multiple central and decentralized exchanges, and they're able to kind of filter out price outliers, and so that reduces a lot of risk and makes sure that our protocol is secure. So one of the biggest limitations is an asset does need a Chainlink price feed. So that can be challenging for some of the native .sama assets like Remark, but we're working with Chainlink we're working really closely with them to try to bring support for all of the .sama assets to their price feeds. And so that can be one thing that limits our ability to add an asset, but having a good price feed for assets like Glimmer and Dot, it's not an issue at all. Having good price feed is important. Another thing that's really important is having enough liquidity on the dexes to support liquidations. So what does that mean, basically? So because all the loans are over collateralized on Moonwell, meaning you have to have more collateral than you're borrowing, we have to know the accurate price of those assets. And if the price of the thing you're borrowing against goes too low, you might get liquidated because you don't have enough collateral to support your loan position. And so it's a kind of a really important function to keeping the protocol healthy, is having liquidators be able to liquidate those positions really quickly and efficiently, so that underwater loans don't stay underwater and the protocol doesn't become insolvent. So we need enough DEX liquidity to kind of support those liquidations. And we already have really healthy liquidations happening on Moonriver today. So we want to make sure that we can support liquidations on Moonbeam as well when we launch.
Amazing. This is, you know what? It's a big project. And I think what I really like about it is just, like you said, the different utility how you can put your tokens to work, right? And actually this does lead me into my next question, because one of your most recent assets was something that I think the .sama community was really excited about. We kind of mentioned it already, but we have the xcKSM, which we were talking about earlier. And I think that is exciting for the .sama community because it's our own, native xCKSM token, but the asset is being able to be borrowed and lended in Moonwell. So it's still fairly fresh for you guys, but a lot of people commonly stake their KSM. And I think that's quite common knowledge, is that when you buy a token, especially a token that can be staked, you stake it on the relay chain. But what's exciting is that you can really do so much more with your KSM than just stake it on the relay chain. So it can really be put to work here. And then there's obviously potential for much bigger yield. Not financial advice, but there is potential here if we're going to be honest about it. So tell us a little bit about what your KSM can do.
We brought KSM over just a few weeks ago. That was a big launch. Cross-chain KSM was just recently launched on Moonriver. And so it was the first cross-chain asset that we brought from the relay chain, basically. And so what that allows you to do is basically, if you're already staking your KSM on the relay chain, you can unstake it. You have to wait 7 days, but you can unstake it, and then you can just send it right over to Moonriver and use it in DeFi now. And so that gives people a lot more things they can do with their KSM. So now I can supply it and lend it out to people, and I can earn a reward for doing that. You'll get paid both interest from borrowers, but also you'll get a mover reward for doing that. And you'll also get an MFAM reward, which is our Moonriver family token, or our governance token for Moonriver. And so you can get rewarded to lending out your KSM. You can also borrow KSM. And then there's also a lot of great opportunities on the dexes on Moonriver. So for example, you can take your KSM and your mover and combine them and become a liquidity provider on a dex on Zenlink or Solarbeam, and you can be rewarded pretty handsomely. We're trying to build up the liquidity of KSM on Moonriver because there's honestly a way more you can do with your KSM than just stake it. And I think this is the same thing we found in Ethereum when, even though staking is available in Ethereum, and sure, you can earn 4 or 5% on staking, you can actually earn much more in DeFi. So you can probably earn 10 or 15% in DeFi. So it's a similar kind of dynamic. This is not financial advice, of course, but I think you'll find that there's just way more you can do with your KSM and DeFi and Moonriver than you can just by staking it on the relay chain. So we're kind of excited to enable some of those new use cases.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's really what it's all about, right? Is when you're holding your token, it's like, what can I do with that while I have it, and how can I put it to work, and how can it bring me more? That's really what it's all about, right? So it's nice to have those options. But it's not just xcKSM, and let's really be clear there. I mean, you really have 7 assets on Apollo. I believe there's 7. So you have your USDT, Moonriver, which is Moonriver native token. You have ETH, of course. We talked about Bitcoin, USDC, and Frax. So will we see? I know you talked a little bit about DOT, and that was to do with Artemis, et cetera, but will we see more assets being added to this pool?
Definitely. There will be more assets added over time. It's just a matter of how quickly we can add them safely. So for example, we would love to add a Call USD. That was just recently launched on xCKSM. And so it's just, as soon as we're able to get a price feed for Akala USD, most likely we'll be activating that. And that'll be really exciting to kind of have another native stablecoin to the .sama ecosystem available on Moonwell. So we're pretty excited about that. And there will be a whole bunch of parachain assets coming from the other parachains. So we're collaborating with a lot of top projects in the .sama ecosystem. Remark team is really awesome. We hope to add a Remark and others as well.
Amazing. That's fantastic. So, and I mean, perfect timing, because we were actually talking a little bit before about being excited about some of the other parachain assets on Moonriver and Moonbeam. But one of my favorites is actually, and we were chatting a little bit about this, but is MOONSAMA. And we've been talking about how I play Carnage every Sunday. So play to earn is becoming a really big thing. And especially with Moonriver becoming really a gaming chain. Like, we're seeing that very commonly now, and they're heading in that direction, as Derek Yu's been talking about in a lot of recent interviews. So are you able to speak a little bit on how you could really use a lending and borrowing platform for maybe the gaming aspect? Because I know we were chatting a little bit about being able to loan and borrow in order to, maybe buy tickets to play MOONSAMA, or that could work for other gaming situations as well.
Totally. I was playing MOONSAMA Carnage as well, and it's so much fun. I was just blown away by how much fun it is. And also, they have some really cool technology. Like, their metaverse bridge is incredible. Like the way you can take resources you mined in Minecraft and like send them back to the Moonriver blockchain and then actually trade those on a DEX is just mind blowing. And it's like the future of like in-game items, I think. So what's really cool about like what lending and borrowing lets you do in like play to earn games are a number of things that are pretty powerful for players. So for example, imagine that you hold Mover, like you invested in Mover, and you want to buy a VIP ticket to play Carnage, but you don't want to sell your Mover. Well, why not just like borrow some Mover, buy a VIP ticket, play Carnage? You could even sell the VIP ticket back after you're done and repay your loan. Or imagine you want to buy a MOONSAMA so you have some buffs so you can actually like do better in Carnage. Like, you could buy a MOONSAMA and not have to pay, over $10,000 in the real world money, just borrow it and then, pay it back later. And then also just to enable people to like craft those really expensive craftables, like Sama bags or whatever, being able to borrow Mover and like buy all the resources you need to craft things is pretty powerful and compelling. So, just giving people more, there's going to be so many cool opportunities. Like, for example, buying a legendary sword or something so you can have like an advantage for like a tournament or something. Those are the kind of things that like having access to capital lets you do. And so really excited about that. And then I'm sure that we want to make it easy for developers to integrate Moonwell into their games and stuff. So you can imagine in the future, maybe being in-game bank for some of these play to earn games. And letting people just like have access to the Moonwell features right inside the game without having to go to our app.
That would be really, really cool. I would like to see that. The Moonwell Bank in MOONSAMA, not saying that's a thing, but just saying that would be cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk briefly. Actually, what I did want to chat about is if you have some time, I was wondering if you could give us a little demo or site of your site.
So first of all, I'm going to actually give you guys a sneak peek at a new version of the site that's not live yet. But if you just go to moonwell.fi, you can access Moonwell right now. But I'm going to show you a sneak peek of some of the new features that you might. So for those of you that already use Moonwell, this might be new to you. And for those of you that don't, you'll see this version probably next week when we launch it. But anyways, just click on the launch app and that takes you right into the Moonwell Apollo app. And you can see some data here, like there's 337 million total supplied. And these are my balances. I have not done anything yet with this account. So just kind of showing you what the experience would be like for a brand new person the first time you used it. I just want to point out a few things. You can access our documentation here with this docs link. And I would encourage you to just, if you're new to lending and borrowing, just to read through this. It'll only take you 10 or 15 minutes and it'll give you a good idea of like how it works. And you'll probably understand it after just reading for a few minutes. And then just to get started, the very first thing is I have some Mover in my wallet and I can just simply supply that Mover and let people borrow it out. So you can see I have like 0.5 mover, I'm just going to deposit maybe 0.4. I want to leave some to pay fees. So let me go ahead and deposit that. And you'll kind of see the this new transaction log. This is a new feature that's not in our current application. And so what I'm doing is I'm actually supplying the mover to the money market. And so what this means basically is that borrowers can come in and borrow it from me. And if you hover over this, you can kind of see what you'll earn from lending it out. So you'll be paid about 10.62% from borrowers. That's like the interest borrowers pay you as a lender. And then you also get those rewards in Mover and MFAM, which MFAM is our token, our governance token. And so you can see that just supplying your mover is actually a pretty good idea. And then once you've supplied it, you can actually do a lot of cool things with it as well.
This is fantastic. We're really getting a show for the future here. Thank you for demoing this. This is exciting.
Yeah, and so then once I've let me just see how this transaction is going in my wallet. I think it's done. So now let me just refresh, and it should show that I've supplied something I can borrow against it. So now that I've supplied my mover, I've supplied $22 worth of mover. I need to enable collateral if I want to borrow against it. You don't have to do this. You can just lend it out to people if you just want a very easy kind of, set it and forget it experience where you just want to like lend your mover out and earn some rewards for doing that. But I'm going to use this as collateral so I can borrow against it, and I can borrow some stable coins. And then there's a lot of really cool use cases that people do, with their borrowed funds. So for example, borrow stable coins, maybe you want to buy more mover, or borrow stable coins, maybe you want an LP on Moonbeam stable swap. You can do that as well. So all kinds of things like that. And then let's see how this transaction is going. All right, done. And now I can go ahead and borrow. So let's borrow some Frax. Frax is like the native stablecoin to xcKSM. So I'm going to just borrow some, or to Moonriver. Let me just borrow some Frax.
I really like the user experience you guys have going on here. It's actually quite simple.
Thanks. And then what you'll see is like this little section here will change to show like my balances. And while I'm waiting for the Frax borrow to complete, I'll just kind of point out a few things. I have a health factor, and basically this health factor is kind of like how healthy my loan is, right? Because these are over collateralized loans. So when I supplied my mover, you can see that it has like a collateral factor of 60% here. And that means I can borrow up to $6 for like every $10 of mover I supplied. And so if I were to borrow right up to the limit, I would have a position health of 1, meaning like if the value of my mover drops, I could be at risk of liquidation. So we have this health metric that kind of shows you, how healthy your position is. And 2 is really healthy, meaning like I've borrowed $6.86, but I could still borrow more. Or if the price of mover goes down, I'm not really at risk of liquidation here. But you should kind of keep that in mind if you're borrowing too much. Like I usually like to keep mine around 1.5 or higher. And it really depends on your risk tolerance. Like if you're, one question a lot of people have is like, how should I set my health? Like, what's a good number? And I can't really answer that question because it's different for every person. Like if you're the kind of person that checks the crypto markets daily, and like you're always paying attention to price and you're ready to like repay part of your loan if the price drops, then maybe 1.5 is good. But if you're the kind of person that you want to go on vacation for a week, you don't want to be in front of a computer, maybe have a much higher position health so you're not at risk is a good idea. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then another kind of thing to point out, so now that I borrowed the Frax, that Frax is actually in my wallet. And so I could actually just go use it in another DeFi protocol, do whatever I want with it. Another thing to point out is just this safety module. So the safety module is an extra contract that basically backstops the Moonwell protocol. So you can take your governance tokens, your MFAM, you can stake them in the safety module, and this provides a backstop. And for helping to secure the Moonwell protocol, you get a staking reward. So you get a 92% staking reward for helping to secure the protocol. Wow. Now, what are these funds used for? If there is a shortfall event, meaning like a smart contract vulnerability or an economic vulnerability or a price oracle issue that causes loss of funds for Moonwell, then up to 30% of your funds in the safety module could be slashed and used to help restore the protocol to solvency. but that's sort of the risk you take as a safety module staker, and in return you're rewarded with more of the governance tokens for providing that function.
That's incredible.
And so basically that's kind of Moonwell in a nutshell. Of course, I can also repay this loan. I can withdraw some of the mover I've supplied by using this, and then I can just I can borrow any asset against the collateral I've deposited. So I could borrow xcKSM if I wanted to use that. And, kind of pretty much everything is open to you. There's a lot of really interesting strategies that people do. For example, borrowing stablecoins to be an LP on a DEX, things like that. So yeah, we're pretty excited about it. Also, I just want to kind of give a shout out to our front-end dev and our designer, Milan. He's done an amazing job with the design. Like, you probably noticed the colors and the beautiful cards and everything. Like,
it's very incredible. I really like the whole design aspect, and the whole experience is really nice.
Yeah, he's done an incredible job. We feel like we have probably one of the best designers in the DeFi space on our team.
Absolutely. I love how I just love how you have it set up with the assets in the middle there. It's very easy to scroll to and very easy to do transactions. So really nice UX there for sure. Awesome. This is so helpful.
And one last thing to just show really quickly is that when you'll earn rewards over time for being a liquidity provider, or both lending and borrowing. And so you can just come to this rewards page here by clicking this button and claim them at any time. So you can claim your MFAM rewards and your mover rewards.
And there's no limit.
Yeah, you can claim them whenever you want. So you can just kind of decide when you want to claim them, or you can just like kind of let them accumulate over time. And we also have a partnership with Moonbeam, so you can actually become a liquidity provider on their DEX with MFAM and mover tokens, and you can be rewarded for that as well. So that's something besides the safety module you could do with your MFAM if you're interested. I can just kind of show you like where that is. If you go to Moonbeam's farm page, you'll notice this MFAM mover farm here. Yeah, you get rewarded in Solar and MFAM for doing that.
Awesome. This is fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for this demo. This is so helpful. So yeah, you can see it's pretty simple actually when you look at it, but it really allows for a plethora of options, which is really nice. So there's lots you can do with it. So you did talk about MFAM. So let's get into a little bit of the tokens before I run you into the ground with your time here. So can you tell us a little bit about the MFAM token, and its use case and the benefits of owning MFAM? Because I know that it is a governance-based token.
Sure. So first of all, we really put a lot of thought when we were launching into, should we just launch on Moonbeam, or should we launch on Moonriver, or should we launch on both? And one of the challenges I think every project in .sama ecosystem faces is this question of like, should we launch on both, or should we launch on one or the other? And what we really decided to do, because we've all been kind of part of the Moonriver community for several months since last fall, like a lot of us are Romies, and we were like, early in Rome DAO. And we just thought there's so much cool stuff happening on Moonriver. We didn't just want to skip Moonriver and go right to Moonbeam like some projects did. So we really wanted to deploy on Moonriver, but we've been raising funds on Moonbeam for the Well token, which will be part of the Artemis deployment on Moonbeam. So we raised about $26 million across a private and public sale over the last few months. And that's been really exciting to see the community demand and like the interest in the Well token that's going to be on Artemis. But what we thought about on Moonriver, we're like, do we want to have two tokens? We need a separate token to govern the Moonwell Apollo protocol, because it's separate. xcKSM is separate from Polkadot, and we can't really govern xcKSM with a Polkadot governance token. So we needed the token, but we didn't want the community to think we were doing a cash grab by doing like two token sales. So what we decided to do is make the Moonriver family token, the MFAM token, a fair launch token, where there was no VCs, no public sale, no tokens were sold. And so really there's only a 10% allocation to the team. And then the rest is the other 90% is there for ecosystem development, for liquidity mining, and can only be earned by, using Moonwell. And so we wanted it to be kind of like a fair launch where everyone had an equal opportunity to kind of earn MFAM just by using Moonwell, like supplying and borrowing. And so all the team and advisor tokens are locked for 1 year. And we just didn't want the community to kind of get the message that we were trying to raise funds on both sides or anything like that. So we've only raised funds on the main deployment on Moonbeam. But more importantly, like going forward, all the new features, just like, we're embracing the Canary network aspect of Kusama. So all the new features will land on Moonriver first, and then they'll be adopted on Moonbeam after they've matured. And so that really gives like Moonwell the opportunity to kind of experiment, like be the Canary network, like expect chaos on Moonriver, right? And then we can graduate those features. So in the early days, the Moonriver family token provides a governance function. Basically, it backstops the protocol by being staked in the safety module. But over time, you'll start to see more utility. I can't talk a lot about the utility you'll see in the future. I don't want to promise features that may or may not exist, but I think over time you'll see the features expand and the utility expand for the Moonriver family token and also for the Well token as well.
Fantastic. That's huge. I mean, you don't have to say much more than that, but it's just nice to know that is potentially in the cards to see some extra utility there. But so you were talking a little bit about, obviously, Kusama is the wild sister, and, Polkadot has this increased security. So are we seeing, in terms of differences then on Apollo and Artemis, are we seeing differences there in terms of like security, et cetera?
Well, so we'll have this similar security posture on both. All of our contracts, our smart contracts, are audited by Halborn, and we've actually hired Halborn not only for the initial audits of both the Moonwell protocol and the safety module and our claims contract, but we've also hired them to do their security advisory as a service. So they're actually continuously re-auditing and pen testing and checking our site for vulnerabilities. And so we've hired Halborn Security to audit our contracts and everything, and then those same audits apply to the Moonwell Artemis deployment as well. We're basically deploying the exact same protocol on both sides, and the protocol or the contracts are identical, and so the audits apply. But that gives us a really good security posture across both. And then we do hold really high security standards, Chainlink price oracles and Halborn assessments, and we're not going to ship anything that isn't fully audited and blessed by the best security professionals in the industry.
Oh, for sure. I believe it. Then in terms of partnerships, I mean, as we see Moonwell here continuing to integrate with into the ecosystem and with other projects, can you tell us some of your partnerships that you have going on?
Sure. Yeah, so we have about 80 different Telegram groups open with almost every team across the .sama ecosystem. It's really incredible to see how much collaboration. I mean, being a part of the .sama ecosystem, I'm sure you've seen this as well. It's like there's so much great collaboration that happens between projects and between teams because everyone really wants to help each other succeed. We all kind of succeed or fail together. And so it's been really amazing to see the collaboration. But in the short term, we've really partnered with a couple of the DEXs, Solarbeam and Zenlink, and we're really excited about the kind of the synergy between DEXs and lending protocols because we can help them have access to more liquidity for their LPs, and they can also help us have access to more liquidity for liquidations and things like that. And so basically by helping each other grow TVL and by helping each other succeed, we both do better. And so it's been really exciting collaborating with the Solarbeam and Zenlink teams on the DEX side. And then also, we're also collaborating pretty closely with Akala to help them bring AUSD to Moonriver and Moonbeam. We're also, talking with Frax as well. We want to basically help all the native projects that we can on .sama ecosystem. We're talking to the Remark team, and what form those partnerships take will ultimately is still TBD. But we're pretty excited about just enabling these assets to, number one, be able to be lent and borrowed on Moonwell, but also to kind of figure out how we can help each other succeed in other areas. Maybe it's like partner integrations. So, for example. If you are a DEX and you want to have native lending and borrowing features in your app, we'd love to talk to you. And that's something you'll probably see in the coming weeks and months from a lot of the DEXs, because it's just a lot easier for them to just talk to our contracts and not have to build their own lending protocol. Just like we don't want to build our own DEX, we'd rather just partner with other strong DEXs in the ecosystem.
Of course. And I think you nailed it on the head there that the .sama ecosystem is really built with this great community, and all these projects, as I've been talking to them, are all excited to kind of help each other out. So you have the strength in really everybody working together rather than competing. And I think that's something that's really really fortunate to see a lot of in the .sama space, really. So that's big. So I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about the future, but can you give us any insight into like the future of Moonwell, or yourself even, or the team, or any of it really?
Well, so in the coming weeks, as soon as Chainlink arrives on Moonbeam, we're ready to launch Moonwell Artemis. So that's our big focus right now, is getting ready to activate the Moonwell Artemis protocol on Moonbeam as soon as Chainlink is ready. And what we've been talking to the Chainlink team, and while nothing is certain, and of course in crypto, there's no such thing as like a definite date, we're really optimistic that they'll come sometime in April, which will let us launch in the next few weeks, hopefully. So that, fingers crossed, that's our biggest goals, to launch Moonwell Artemis. And then beyond that, you'll probably see more partnerships. And then we're just kind of hoping to, add the best parachain assets, the best XCM assets to Moonwell.
Expand from there. Yeah, of course. So are you hiring then?
We are going to start hiring. So we just finished fundraising. We had a highly successful public sale last Friday. And then once we get past the Artemis launch, we're going to be hiring. But right now we're a bit heads down. And so we're trying to kind of limit our growth, just because we won't be able to onboard people in a really excellent way to our team when we're so busy getting ready for our launch. But as soon as we get past the Moonwell Artemis launch, we'll start hiring, and we want to grow our team. I mean, we've raised quite a bit of money, and we're really excited about building out our team and hiring not only engineering talent, but also other areas, biz dev, like business operations, like marketing, community building. Like there's a whole bunch of things we want to do. We're working on an ambassador program as well. So we hope to share more details about that. But if you're interested in getting involved, I would definitely encourage you to go to our Discord and just kind of hang out and start communicating, just start interacting with the community, because there's going to be a lot of really fun things happening with our ambassador program and other things like that in the future.
Amazing. It sounds like you have a really fun team, and you're so educational. And actually, that was something I missed that I wanted to just touch on too, is that I love what you're doing in terms of education, because I think a big part of driving adoption is obviously the education piece. And I think quite often, that part, I don't want to say overlooked, but almost is. And you guys are really big on the education piece.
Yeah, thanks for noticing. So it's kind of a passion of mine as well, because when I was working at Coinbase for the last couple of years, since DeFi Summer kicked off in a couple of years ago in 2020, I've created this DeFi channel on Slack internally, and it had 2,000 users when I left Coinbase in it. And it became the largest Slack channel besides like the general Coinbase channel. And there was so much interest in, because everyone wanted to learn about DeFi. Everyone that works there wants to get more well-educated and learn how to use DeFi. Learn how to become more financially independent. And so I started doing these DeFi lunch and learns at Coinbase, where I would just invite people to just come and watch someone use a protocol, and we would bring in guests to help educate. I did some of them myself, and I would bring in guests to show other protocols. And it became this really great educational experience where we could just kind of help each other learn DeFi together. And so I'm really passionate about that educational aspect. And while there are things that I can't necessarily do publicly, because it might look like financial advice, so I can't really like make a YouTube channel showing everyone all this great DeFi educational content, which I wish I could do. But I would love to see others in the Moonwell community kind of take up that mantle and create great educational content for DeFi, because there's so much we can learn and share with each other. And it's this great enabler that really enables people to have like financial independence. And so I'm really just passionate about helping people to have that like financial wellness that we were talking about earlier.
Fantastic. Well, you gave us a good intro into that anyways with the demo. So I love the educational aspect of what you guys are doing. So big props to you there. I absolutely love and support that 100%. Luke, I know we're running low on time. Do you have maybe 3 or 4 minutes for a couple of community questions?
Sure. I'd love to. Is
that okay? Okay, fantastic. So will there be yield farming chances for Well?
We'll have a similar liquidity mining rewards available on Moonwell Artemis when that launches. So yes.
Amazing. And the second community question I have for you is, can you use Well as collateral to borrow? I think we kind of discussed a little bit about this, but.
Sure. So we do want to enable the Well token to be able to be lent and borrowed. It will take us a little bit of time for that to happen, though. And like I talked about earlier, how it requires a Chainlink price feed and a certain amount of liquidity on the DEXs. So it will take time for that to build up. So it won't be available on day one. but we will work to enable collateral for Well as well. It sounds funny, but we'll work to enable collateral on Well as soon as possible, as soon as we have, exchange listings and things that are required for Chainlink.
That's funny. I actually spelled something out with Well at the end the other day and then put Well, and I was confused too when I wrote it. That's funny. Will you eventually support dot borrowing and lending? We talked about that, so I don't know if you want to elaborate there, but we pretty much crossed that path.
Yeah, dot is the largest parachain or relay chain asset in all of Polkadot. So at 20+ billion market cap, we definitely want to enable dot borrowing and lending. That's going to be huge for us.
Yeah, it's going to be huge for everybody for sure. So will MFAM owners receive some sort of percentage of Moonwell Apollo revenue?
So our legal counsel has advised us not to share fees with governance token holders. I think in the short term, that kind of applies to a lot of DeFi protocols in the sense that there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty, right? Because the SEC and other regulatory bodies haven't really given us good guidance on what we're allowed to do with, what we can do as like a token issuer. And so in the short term, the answer is no, we won't be able to share fees with Well or MFAM token holders. But I'm hoping in the next year or two, we have some more regulatory clarity and that changes. Of course, it takes time. And I think it's just going to take like a lot of like politics and like lobbying Congress to like help inform and educate our politicians on DeFi and hopefully improve the regulatory landscape.
Yeah, of course. So can there be, my next question then is, well, not mine, but next community question is, can there be a warning or will there ever be a warning for if a shortfall event occurs?
So we can't really warn about something like that because it's inherently unpredictable, right? So it's sort of like if there was a smart contract vulnerability, you might not know about it until, of course, it actually happens, and then funds are gone. And so that's why the cooldown timer exists, because the last thing you want to have is everyone unstakes as soon as the shortfall event occurs. But in any case, there's no real ability we have to warn, but that's why it's effectively like an insurance policy, right? It sits as a backstop to the protocol. There's also protocol reserves as well that help. So for example, a percentage of the fees, like the spread between the lending and borrowing interest rate, is captured by the protocol as a reserve, and that can help backstop the protocol as well.
Awesome. And so I have one last community question for you, Luke. And that is going to be, when an asset is borrowed and then deposited into the supply side of Moonwell, does it increase the amount of collateral provided, thus increasing how much you can borrow to a certain extent?
Yes, it does work like that. Some people call that folding or looping or recursive lending, but you can actually supply the same asset you've borrowed as collateral and borrow more against it. Watch your loan health, though. That is a very advanced use case. So I would just encourage everyone to be safe.
That question is from a very advanced crypto user, so who's excited about Moonwell. So
cool.
that's where that question comes from. So I'm not surprised. Luke, this has been so fun. Is there any other closing remarks that you would like to make before we close out here?
I just want to thank you, Riri, for having me on the show. It's been so much fun talking to you and demoing Moonwell. And also just thank the Moonwell community for the great adoption and the enthusiastic love we get from the Moonwell community every day. So just thank you to all the people on Moonriver and everyone that has just been so great in the MOONSAMA ecosystem. And we're really excited about the Moonwell Artemis launch and couldn't be more excited to show you new features in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you for those warm words, Luke. And I think that's something that I really love, is the community aspect. So let's leave it off on that note. I absolutely love it. So it was my pleasure speaking to you, and hopefully, maybe in months down the road, once more develops, we can meet up again and discuss what is next on the list. Sounds good. Thanks, Riri. Have a great weekend. Thanks so much, Luke. Much appreciated. We'll talk to you later. All right. Bye-bye. Bye.